And the U.S. Supreme Court has declined to intervene in an ongoing legal dispute over a tough new Texas law restricting abortion by requiring doctors who perform them to have admitting privileges at a nearby hospital to take effect. Heather Busby is Executive Director of NARAL Pro-Choice Texas and is joining us via Skype. Heather, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about the numbers first. Because this law now is free to go ahead and take effect, what is the scope of the area and the number of women that will be affected?
So it's estimated that about 22,000 women in the state will have to travel more than 100 miles and will be basically unable to obtain legal abortion care in the state of Texas. That includes the entirety of West Texas, with the exception of El Paso, and the entire Rio Grande Valley. In addition to that, clinics in the other cities many of them are operating at reduced capacity. They have fewer physicians who can actually perform abortions, and many of them are limited to just a couple of days a week. So we're finding that it's harder and harder to get appointments in a timely manner.
Of course, this law has already made its way through the legal system. There was an emergency injunction, and that was overturned. And of course, that was upheld by the Supreme Court. Tell me how disturbing it is, because it seems like there is indeed a trend across the nation, particularly in states that have conservative legislators, to find ways to restrict abortion. How concerned are you about this, and do you see this trend?
I find it very concerning, and it is a national trend on a state-by-state level. And as we saw it in Albuquerque, New Mexico, they're also attempting it on the municipal level. It's about chipping away at access. Since they can't overturn Roe versus Wade at this point and make abortion entirely illegal, the idea is to take away access to safe legal abortion care at the state and municipal level. And that's by enacting highly restrictive, what are called TRAP, or targeted regulations at abortion providers, laws like the one we saw passed in Texas this summer that have the effect of closing down clinics or tying their hands to the point where it's hard to operate. This is in addition to the ongoing harassment, death threats, stalking behaviors that we're seeing against providers and staff at clinics.
Let's go back and talk about Texas particularly. I know that Planned Parenthood has a plan to put in place to make abortions available to those who are affected by this law. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, we've seen across the state a number of groups that have formed around the state to help provide what's called practical assistance, transportation, lodging, et cetera, to help Texans who are seeking abortion care to make it to the clinic. The problem is that as we have fewer and fewer clinics, as more clinics are forced to close, as the next phase of the law goes into effect next year, we anticipate that all but 6 clinics will shut down in the state of Texas. So there just will not be the capacity to meet the need. And keep in mind that 2 years ago, the legislature cut the family planning budget by 2/3, which resulted in 76 family planning clinics across the state closing down.
And Heather, let me jump in. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to get to this before I have to let you go. So what's next? I read a quote from Cecile Richards, who is the president of Planned Parenthood Federation. She says this isn't over. So what is next?
It is absolutely not over. As we saw this summer, this extreme legislation has awakened Texans and awakened our drive. And, we have elections coming up next year, and we hope to change the makeup of our legislature. The court battle is not over. This fight is far from over. It may take a long time, but we're going to come back from this.
Heather Busby, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Well, here in New York City, the end of an era Wednesday. For more than a decade, the Long Island City warehouse known as 5 Points has been a larger-than-life canvas for groundbreaking graffiti artists and a mecca for fans interested in their colorful canvases. Well, those fans awoke this morning to something shockingly different. The building was sold a few months back, and the owner had a crew of painters whitewash the warehouse facade overnight in anticipation of its scheduled demolition later this year. Graffiti enthusiasts are in mourning. And you are watching Arise America.